Hello, friend. Thank you for listening to the Bible Tract Echoes radio broadcast. I'm evangelist Micah McCurry, and I'm going to start the week and the day off with a special shout-out to a good friend of mine, Pastor Richard Way of Heritage Baptist Church in Houma, Louisiana. Good church down there. He's doing a good work to the glory of God. They actually just ordered the customized version of our tract called Does Anyone Care? Another good friend of mine named Evangelist Byron Fox actually wrote that gospel tract called Does Anyone Care? Last year, and God has used it in a great way. And so just a small shout out here to Brother Richard Way and the good folks of Heritage Baptist Church. Today, I'm excited to share with you some developments and some things going on at Bible Tracts Incorporated. I am so pleased to be the bearer of good news. You listen to so many media outlets and so much content is really doom and gloom and despair, and that is the exact antithesis, the exact opposite of what we try to accomplish here on the Bible Tract Echoes broadcast. Today, we're going to go through our latest newsletter. If you're curious about it and would like to see it for yourself, you can go to our website, BibleTractsInc.org. And I neglected to mention, if you'd like to order some of that gospel tract called Does Anyone Care? Of course, you can do that at our website, BibleTractsInc.org. For those that might be wondering, I did mention that Richard Way ordered that tract customized with his church information on it. If you have a ministry or a church that you'd like to be represented on the back panel of any of our gospel tracts, we can actually do that for you. Now, be aware that all of our gospel tracts that we put out, the millions upon millions that we ship and print, we do them for free. We've distributed them to over 170-something different countries, 75-plus languages, and all to the glory of God. But something that we have done over the past many years, this is not new to me, but if someone would like their tracts imprinted with custom information, for instance, as I mentioned, your church, then we do charge just a little bit for that. Of course, it requires extra labor. Realize that shorter runs of gospel tracts, the price per piece is much more expensive. And so as a way to defray the cost, what our goal is to really still offer the gospel tracts themselves for free, but we just tack on just a little bit for the additional labor, time, and design, and all of those things that go into custom making some gospel tracts. And so if you'd be interested in any of our customized gospel tracts, just go to our website. Up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the option to see our tracts, but then it'll give you a drop-down menu. After you click on that, you'll see the option for custom tracts. You'll see our invite card style, the bifold, the trifold, the double parallel, or the quad fold, the little longer tracts with a really substantial salvation message in them. Anyway, BibleTractsInc.org is a place to find those. As I mentioned, we are going to be discussing what God has been doing at Bible Tracts Incorporated. We're going to look at our latest newsletter. On the front cover of this newsletter is a striking picture of Paul Levine. Dr. Paul, as he was known, such a good man. It's amazing, and I mentioned this before, but as I talk to people, I realize Dr. Paul passed away in 1996, almost really 25 years ago now. And we are saddened by his loss even still, but really we're encouraged by the fact that God has been able to and has chosen to use this ministry even in his absence. One of the reasons for that is because one of our main core values here at BTI is this: the power of the gospel is in the word and not the worker. And I think that's one of the reasons why this ministry has succeeded so well over the last 8 decades. It's because Paul Levine did not plug this ministry and its emphasis and its charisma and its personality into himself. Did he bleed through and really permeate everything about our legacy? Of course. But it wasn't about him. We were plugged into and are plugged into. Our desire is to be really rooted and grounded and foundationally in the power of the gospel, in the power of the Word of God. And that's one of the reasons why we do believe honor should be given to whom it's due, and Paul Levine and his leadership, the founding of this ministry, has done so much for the cause of Christ. And so on the front cover of our first newsletter of this year is a picture of Paul Levine. He's looking off into the distance, and across the middle it says, "A lasting legacy." And that's what our desire is, to continue, not to build a monument to the man, but to continue the machinery that he put together by the grace of God to go into the future for the glory of God. Right inside the front cover of this newsletter is a quote from Amy Carmichael. Now, she was a missionary to India, and that strikes home for me on two fronts. Number one, we recently just had the opportunity to help print 1 million gospel tracts in India. And if you'd like to be a help with that project, understand that everything we do here at Bible Tracts, we try to do for free. And we did that as well. We did not charge the national pastors and the missionaries over in India for the cost of this production. We printed them for free. And so if you'd like to help with that, of course, you can go to BibleTractsInc.org and just select the donation tab up there and choose tract printing and distribution. Of course, if you choose the general fund option as well, at the end of the day, everything we do is about printing gospel tracts. So you won't be very far afield if you choose that option either. Realize that a small gift of $5, $10, whatever the Lord lays on your heart, maybe it's a more substantial gift in the world's eyes than that, but it's not about equal gifts. It's about equal sacrifice. And so I mentioned that we've had the opportunity to print millions of gospel tracts in India over these last few months, but also my wife's grandmother, the prayer warrior, the great lady that my children called Gigi. She is their great-grandmother, Lena Woodward. She grew up on the mission field of India as a young girl. She was a missionary kid, an MK as they are called. And so it brings to mind, as we read this quote from Amy Carmichael, the multitude of people that have given their life in service to the God of all eternity to reach the Indian people, and those that are even now being persecuted by the powers that be in that country in their quest to propagate the gospel, again, for the glory of God. Here's a quote from Amy Carmichael. "You can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving." Let me run that by you one more time. Amy Carmichael, a lady that really desired to see God work in a great way, and truly one who loved and gave. Here's what she said: "You can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving." And how true that is. And lest it be said that I'm after your money, let me say this very clearly and very bluntly. What I desire from you, what I believe God desires from you, is not necessarily that you give financially. If the Lord leads you that way, phenomenal. That's great. We won't turn down your donation. But what I believe is more important, and really what I spend more time on this program and have for the last year of my time as the host of Bible Tract Echoes, I've spent far more time encouraging you to use gospel tracts than I've ever spent trying to get you to give us money. If nothing else comes of these few short minutes that we spend together at this time on this radio station, if nothing else comes except for you to get a burden for the lost, for you to go to BibleTractsInc.org and order some free gospel tracts, some tools for you to witness to a lost and dying world, if that's quote-unquote all that comes out of this, then friend, this was a rousing success. Let's get our priorities straight. The reason that our ministry has survived for over 80 years is not because of a charismatic leader, though we had that. It's not because our mission is such a good one, though that's true as well. It's because our desire is to see God and Him glorified to a lost and dying world. There are destitute people all around us, and we need to learn to love them in such a way that we are willing to give, not just of our pocketbooks, but of our time, our talents, and our treasures. You remember the parable from the Gospels that Jesus gave of the man that was given 5 talents, one that was given 2, and another man that was just given 1. The man that had 5 talents, what did he do? By his work by his ingenuity, he turned those into a total of 10 talents. The man that had 2, he turned them into 4. But the man that had 1, he hid it. Can I ask you, friend? I don't necessarily care how many talents, quote unquote, you have, figuratively speaking or otherwise. What are you doing with them? Are you giving them to the master, like the little boy with the 5 loaves and 2 small fishes? Let's get busy about the work of the Lord. You can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. Let me read the short introduction that I give to this newsletter. Here's what I say. As I ponder the blessings of these past few months and endeavor to communicate our burden to you, our generous donors, I find myself at a loss. In the midst of troubling times and tumultuous tidings, you have risen up. Our incredible team of servants is in awe of the sacrifices many of you have made to allow this ministry to go forward. One of the greatest pleasures of my position is this, the joy of relaying to you our thanks and appreciation for your giving. I am almost speechless when I consider what God's people have done for His glory. God has allowed us, through people just like you, to do more over the past few months than possibly ever before. That weighty statement is not made in boast or with a sense of satisfaction. We have only scratched the surface of all that God is leading us to do. So, please consider continuing and even increasing your prayers, your giving, and your heart for the gospel. As we look toward the future, we will not forget the blessings or legacy of the past. That being said, I would like to practically remind you of the foundation upon which Bible Tracts, Inc. has been built. Through the pages of this bulletin, I claim the great privilege of reintroducing to you our founder, Dr. Paul Levine. He finished his course with joy over 20 years ago and now resides in his heavenly home, and I imagine he would be pleased if we reminded you of his love for this ministry. That is why, throughout this year's bulletins, we will be republishing articles of Dr. Paul's from the past. Please enjoy this small glimpse into the heart and mind of this great man of God. And please take the time to read every page of this important publication. Allow God to tug on your heartstrings as He sees fit. So many of our donors recall Dr. Paul with fondness, and if you have a favorite memory or funny anecdote about Paul Levine or his sidekick, blind Bob Finley, that you would like to share, then we would love to hear from you. Please email me directly at micah@BibleTractsInc.org. That's MICAH@BibleTractsInc.org. Or use one of the other many ways to contact us you can find on our website. God bless. Have a great day for His glory.